Josh Malerman's horror thriller novel, Bird Box, is now a movie.
Let's dig in. Be wary, those of you out there who haven't read the book or haven't seen the movie and you plan to. This is a big spoiler alert, okay? Don't go beyond this point.
Literally
You'll
everything.
regret it.
We're going to talk about everything.
All of it.
In the movie and
out of it.
And in the book. You've been warned.
We have two categories right now. Things the movie missed and things that the movie changed. We're going to talk about things the movie missed first.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. There's some little things in here, just because I'm a stickler for all the little things. I'm a big reader, and I love things to be the exact same way. So there are little things in here, just to let you all know. So, in the very beginning of this movie, and the book, she's talking to the children before they go on the river, okay? In the book, when she talks to the children answer yes every time. And when they don't answer yes, she says, answer me, every single time. And then they say yes. In the movie, it was different. They just nodded their heads. And again, a little thing, but it did bother me a bit. Because it's just something so small that they could have just got it right, you know? Gotten it right.
Also, her sister. In the book, Mallory's sister's name is Shannon. In the movie, it's Jessica. There's literally no reason to change that.
That was
whatsoever.
so confusing.
Why?
I don't understand that one.
There's no reason.
There's no reason. It was really frustrating. Because at first I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely Shannon. It's definitely her sister. And then when they went to the doctors in the book, the movie, which didn't happen in the book, and the doctor called her Jessica, I was like, oh, is Jessica another doctor? And I was like, no, Jessica is this random person. What is going on? I still don't even know if that was actually supposed to be. I think it was her sister. It was. No, it definitely was. It definitely was. No reason to change the name. That was weird.
I think I found out a reason.
What?
So a lot of people think that Sarah Jessica Parker looks like a horse. I'm not saying that she does, but that's a popular opinion that I've come across in my life.
Who is Sarah Jessica Parker?
We'll put a picture up.
Is that the person who played her?
No. But some people say that she looks like a horse, and for some reason in this movie, the writing team is obsessed with horses. We counted 8 references to horses in the movie for no reason. A horse is not mentioned in the book once.
Nowhere in the book.
At all. It's all about dogs in the book. But in the movie, they went so far as to put a news report of a horse running next to a police car for some reason. Why?
I don't know why that was there.
And
that was weird.
And that's a good segue into the apartment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shannon and Mallory in the book shared an apartment. They got an apartment right after, or however old they were, like 20-something. I don't know when they started, but like in the book, I believe Mallory's supposed to be like 24. Shannon's a little older. They're sharing an apartment, even though, everyone told them not to. But then in the movie, Shannon lived on this.
Guess what it is. It's a horse ranch.
The person named Jessica lived on a horse ranch, and Shannon/Jessica, I'm sorry, this is so confusing, had apparently found this studio for Mallory to live in, the studio apartment for Mallory to live in, because in the movie, she's this amazing artist who paints on these huge canvases, like these real-looking people. So weird. But regardless of that, then there was Shannon's death scene.
Which, in the movie, she climbed into a car that was on fire because Hollywood.
No, she didn't climb into the car.
She did?
No.
Oh no,
she
that's right. Sorry,
the car.
that was somebody else.
Yeah, she crashed the car. They were driving from the doctor's, which again, She never went to a doctor for her baby. Oh my gosh. But they were driving back from the doctor's. Shannon slash Jessica sees something and then goes and crashes the car with Mallory, the pregnant woman, in it, and then walks away. Doesn't even try to kill Mallory, which was silly because that's the whole premise of the book.
Yeah,
like, you see the monsters or the creatures, and then you kill people, and then yourself.
It seems like half the people killed themselves and the other half killed other people.
Yeah, it was weird. But she crashes the car, and that's not even how she dies. She gets out and then runs into a horde of people, and then you don't see her again. Like, I don't even know how she died, really, in the book. This Jessica slash Shannon. But Shannon, in the real book, how she died was she was in the apartment with Mallory. Mallory was watching the news, I think. I don't remember specifics, but Mallory, I believe, was watching the news, or she was downstairs doing something. She didn't hear from Shannon in, like, a little while. Then she hears a thump. She goes upstairs. She sees that the blanket from the window had, like, swung down, so she covers her eyes. And then she goes into the bathroom, and Shannon's lying dead on the floor. That's how Shannon dies. It's such an easy thing. Don't know why they changed that.
It required less special effects to do that.
That's true.
But it ignores a huge plot point in the book because Mallory actually lived in her own house before she went to George's house, which...
For 4 months.
Yeah, that doesn't even happen at all in the movie. She doesn't have her own house. They have an apartment which she doesn't return to.
Yeah, it was just Mallory's apartment. Not both of theirs. And the movie starts right when she is like 4 months pregnant, or maybe even more than that, because the doctor said the baby was already the size of a melon, or a small melon. So maybe she was even more than 4 months.
Cantaloupe.
Don't remember
Small melon.
Specifics. So that was completely different. In George's, or even before that, the TV report, the Alaska report, in the movie, right before it showed that the report of people killing themselves and other people happened in Alaska, right before that, they muted the TV. They were like, oh, it's just in Russia, mute, and then they turn around and they don't see the report on Alaska. That was like a big point in the book, talked about more than once, which means it's like a big point. And when they saw that, that's when they were like, whoa, okay, maybe this is bigger than we realized. And you know, Mallory in the book was skeptical the entire time about, you know, all this stuff that's happening. Shannon was like immediate, like, oh my god, okay, when we get home, you know, they drove to get the pregnancy test. They were like, okay, when we get home, I'm covering the windows. And Mallory was like, calm down, Shannon. It's not that big of a deal. They get back. Mallory calls their parents. Their parents are nowhere in the movie. Like, they talk about their father like he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
That was never mentioned, right?
They actually loved their parents in the book because they continually try to call them. In the movie, Mallory tries to call her mom, but the cell lines are dead, which we'll get into that later.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that it only happened like once that she really tried to call her in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, it was multiple times. They lived in the apartment for 4 months, which we've said so many times, and I'm sorry. But yeah, so that was really annoying. In the movie, Mallory wanted to get rid of her baby. She wanted to put her baby up for adoption. And Shannon was all like, no, it's fine. The baby will bring people together. In the book, the first thought Mallory had was like, wow, this is really happening. This is like emotional. She was crying. But she was like, I'm keeping my baby. Absolutely, I'm keeping my baby. Like, I don't want to put my baby up for adoption. And she even called the mother, and the mother was like, oh, okay, you're going to keep the baby? And she was like, yeah, it's my baby.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a really big deal, I guess, but it was there.
And again, the parents are in the book.
Yeah, they're still a big part of it. And like, again, she never went to a doctor. She never had like the normal modern pregnancy, I guess you could say, because she never was able to go to a doctor. Because when she found out she was pregnant, that's when the world started to slowly get worse.
Yeah, in the book, it was a much more of a slower progression. There were many more newscasts about it and everything. In the movie, it was just all of a sudden the world was over.
Yeah.
And that was, in the book, the book kind of begins when she first gets pregnant, and then the world starts to slowly end. But the movie starts when she's like 4 or 5 months pregnant already.
At least. There was also George's house in the book, which was a pretty big deal. Was he put out an ad to come to his house? It wasn't just like people found it. No, it was an ad. He wanted people to come. He was such a great guy. He wanted people to come. So that was something they missed.
And that again exhibits how slow everything happens. George
he was able to put an ad.
Yeah, the newspapers were running for long enough that George was able to recognize that something was coming to an end and invite people into his house.
Yeah.
And in the book, George was described as about a 70-year-old man, and in the movie it's played by like a 5-foot tall, what would you say, 30, 35?
No, definitely. No, he was at least 55. That's a stretch,
He looked young. He looked young.
Yeah, he was at least 55, but he was very little, and he wasn't really old. 55 really isn't old. Like 70, I don't know. I feel like that was more profound, but it was annoying. But that was something they changed, not something they missed. Jumping the gun there, guy.
We'll get to that.
Something they missed was there were no dogs. That was such a big part in the book.
Half of this book is about dogs.
I could not even believe it. My sisters saw the movie before me, and we were talking about the book because we read it together before we saw the movie, and we were talking about the dogs in the scene, and my sister was like, dogs? There's no dogs in the movie. And I was like, what do you mean there are no dogs in the movie? That was infuriating because...
Well, there are dogs. There's like 2 golden retrievers in the last scene.
Literally at the very end, with the last like 2 minutes.
And they provide no relevance to the plot.
They're just there. They're just there.
So, well, we can actually talk about what the role of dogs were in the book, because it was... most of the book actually revolved around dogs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so the housemates went out on missions. Tom and Felix went out.
No, Tom and Jules.
Tom and Jules went out on missions to find dogs because they were going to train them to be
seeing eye
dogs because they believed at the time that animals wouldn't go mad when they saw the creatures.
Yeah, because they wanted to find out, like, if we go mad, do animals go mad? They weren't sure, so they were like, let's test it out, let's try to get these dogs so they can lead us. They had no idea.
Yeah, and so they actually end up finding 2 huskies in the book, and they bring them back to the house. And when they find the second husky is when they find the birds in the box.
Yeah, that's when they find the birds, and it was in a box.
Not a supermarket, because they never went to a supermarket in the book.
Yeah, that was really weird. In the movie, we'll get to the names of the characters at the things that they've changed, but in the movie, like, a few of them go to the supermarket, and there are just birds being sold in the supermarket. That's unsanitary and actually not allowed in supermarkets unless there's another section for animals. So that was really weird. And Mallory in the movie was the one that picked up the birds, and again, they were in a cage. And as we know, for all of us who have read this book, animals are absolutely affected. If they were just in a cage, they would have been affected. And I can understand... No, I still don't understand it, because when they first got to that supermarket, all of the windows were... There was no blinds on the windows when they first went to the supermarket, so the birds would have seen something.
Yeah, in the movie, when they get to the supermarket, Tom goes around because he somehow knows that there's blinds in this supermarket, and he pulls them all down, which I've never seen a supermarket with blinds in it, but I've been told that Trader Joe's has them.
Maybe.
But this wasn't a Trader Joe's anyway.
It was like a... I don't remember what he said it was. That doesn't really matter, but...
So anyway, there's a dog named Vincent, who is Felix's dog. And after the slaughter at the end, he's in the basement. He's locked in the cellar, which is another part that the movie ignores in the book. There's a cellar to the house, which is an integral part, again. So the dog was spared. So after the climax of the movie, when everybody dies except Mallory and the 2 kids, the dog is there in the book. And Mallory takes the dog, and she goes out... Victor. I said Vincent. Victor. And they go out on the town. Mallory finds a bar. She drinks, and she leaves the kids at home for hours and hours while she goes out and drinks, and she goes to drugstores.
We're not sure how many hours, but it had to have been at least, like, 3. Because to get there, she was driving 5 miles an hour for, like, 6 miles there, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but regardless.
There's a scene in the book which was the most terrifying for me and painful to read.
Horrifying.
when Mallory's in the bar with the dog and
Victor.
she hears something and she
Yeah, the dog starts barking and like he goes to a trapdoor, like to the cellar of the bar.
And so Mallory, thinking quick, ties the dog to a post in the bar, and then through very visual descriptions, Josh Malerman allows us to
Witness this dog's death.
the dog gnaws its paw off where it was tied.
Well, it wasn't tied on his paw.
Where was
That would be weird.
Well, what did it
Can you
gnaw?
imagine if she did that? She's like tied right here, and
Yeah.
he's like, oh no.
That didn't make sense. What did it?
Well, it was a leash. She tied the leash on the pole.
Yeah, but didn't he do something?
Yeah. He like pulled himself through and
right,
it went
yeah.
to bone. He gnawed like I think his arm. She didn't see it obviously because she had a blindfold the whole time. So what they said in the book was that she heard bone snapping and she
his
knew.
tooth cracked. His tooth cracked. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, she was like, it sounded like his tooth is cracking. She also said that something brushed up against her leg when she walked closer to him, to Victor, and she was like, maybe he threw his tongue at me. It was a little weird.
Yeah, she
But-
felt something hit her, so she thought maybe he was like, and his tongue flew out
Like
or something.
like he bit his tongue. I don't know. It was freaking terrible.
But-
I never want to go through that again. But yeah, that was a big part, especially because before we hear about what happened to Victor, when she's on the river, because as we know, it jumps through timelines, or through 2 timelines. I think at one point it's 3, but it goes to 2 for the most part. And so at the part before we know how Victor dies, she's talking about Victor, and she's like, I really wish Victor were here with us. I wish he wasn't dead. She talks about that, so it's a profound thing for her. Victor helped her so much during the time when everyone else was gone, and when she only had these 2 kids, and it was especially terrible because they never found out how animals were affected, and she had to find out alone with this precious dog that she knew for a while now, and it was really hard. And so having these dogs was a big deal, and the movie didn't care
At all.
at all.
There was no mention.
That was terrible. What else did they miss? There were no wolves on the river.
This was another big scene. Instead of having all the incidents that happened to Mallory in the book while she was on the river, they took them, removed them, and then inserted Hollywood versions of them. So
For which part?
all the incidents on the river.
Oh
with
yeah,
Mallory.
you're right. I'm sorry, I
So,
wasn't paying attention
In
fully.
the book, Mallory's rowboat gets kind of brushed up on a bank on the side, and she hears paws and growling.
Yeah.
And in the book, you kind of think that it's one of the creatures at first,
Yes.
but then Mallory
And
recognizes it.
This is after the incident with the man.
Yeah. So then she's trying to fight off whatever it is. She thinks that it's a dog, and then she gets slashed
Yeah,
on
'cause she
her
hears,
shoulder.
She hears
Yeah.
multiple growls, and she's like, okay, it's a pack. Her shoulder gets really messed up. It's her left shoulder gets really messed up, and it's again a profound part because she literally passes out on the river.
She faints because of blood loss because
She can't get
of the wolf, and that's not even mentioned.
Yeah, it wasn't like she didn't get severely hurt on this river at all.
And
I'm sorry, I was about to say something they changed. We're on things that they missed. I'm sorry.
And in the book, when she faints, at that point, the girl had peed in the rowboat. It was full of water and Mallory's blood, and she wakes up, the blindfold on,
And vomits.
and yeah.
Yeah, so that was completely taken out, and I can kind of understand that because that's disgusting, and I can see how it's not really.
But it's the story.
Yeah, I know. No, I can see why in the movie they're kind of like, all right, we want to make it shorter. We don't really need to add that in. I can see that, but I don't like that just because it is the story. And again, I'm a stickler for all those little things. I really am.
If they did it to make it shorter, though, then they shouldn't have added in
All those
about
crazy parts.
an hour of things that never happened in the book.
Yes. And she had long black hair. Now, I pictured her as Asian, and I pictured her little boy as Asian as well, just because, I don't know, for some reason, the long black hair. I just was thinking of, long, silky black hair. And in the movie, her hair was, at the beginning, like, short and kind of scraggly, and it was like a darkish brown. maybe people might see as black, but the entire time her hair was long.
Yeah,
and again, it's just a little thing that is so easy, so easy. But like they wanted to not do it right.
and in the book, Mallory's like her early 20s. Sandra Bullock.
24, I believe. I'm pretty sure she was 24.
Sandra Bullock plays her in the movie, and they tried their best to make her fit the age of book Mallory, but
She was definitely 40 something.
40
Without a
something.
doubt.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so was Shannon / Jessica, which they were very close in age
Yeah, I
in
think
the book.
Shannon. I almost said Jessica. I think Shannon was like, I don't remember how like 28 maybe. I'm pretty sure she was older. You guys can all correct us if we're wrong on anything in the comments, because I love when people know what happened. But I'm pretty sure Shannon was older, and Mallory was 24, and she was pregnant. And what's her name again? Sandra Bullock.
Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. She's definitely at least in her 40s, and that was evident. And it's annoying. It's such a small thing to get right, and they didn't do it. I feel like in all the movies, like even in the Hunger Games movies, just like little things here and there that are so easy to do right, they didn't do right for no reason.
Like the color of the cat in the Hunger Games.
Or the color of their eyes.
Yeah. Well.
No,
yeah.
I can only understand it if they're allergic, like in Harry Potter. But
happened.
they weren't.
Yeah.
They just didn't care.
Was it Daniel Radcliffe was allergic to the contacts, so he didn't have Harry's eye color.
Yeah, he had his regular blue eyes because he had this bad reaction to the green contacts, and that's totally understandable. I see that. I think he played an amazing role. So yeah, keep that eye color. Fine, that's totally fine. But in a book to movie thing like Hunger Games, something so simple as the eye color is so simple. Same with her hair. Like just same with her age. Fine. There are so many great actresses out there that are younger that could also play the same role. I don't understand that. So another thing that the movie missed, or I guess that could also be changed, but the birds in the movie were inside the house in a cage and were, I guess, making noises like every once in a while, like when Gary first arrived. In the book, what they missed was they were outside in a box with holes, and Cheryl would go out to feed them, and they played a great role when Gary showed up because they weren't, cooing like normal birds. They were like, ah, like screeching almost. And the same happened when Mallory and Olympia were giving birth. They were making terrible noises. They were a big part. The book is called Bird Box. It was such a big part. And that's not how it was in the movie. Until the end, or until the river scenes, when they had them in a small little box. And that's
Cardboard box, it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know what the box was in the book. They never talked about that.
That was also another thing they found. At the point that they went to the grocery store, they mentioned that it was 3 days into Armageddon or whatever. I don't know if you guys own birds, but birds not being fed for 3 days, they would have died.
I think it was a little longer than 3 days actually, because Olympia arrived after 3 days in the movie, and then many days later they went to the supermarket. So it had to have been at least a week, at least.
That's also kind of a moot point though, because in the book when Felix or Jules and Tom go out and they find the husky and the bird box, it has been months and the birds are still alive somehow, and they mention in the book that the previous owners must have left them with tons of feed.
Yeah, because they weren't sure about like why they survived, but they also weren't sure about why the dog survived, but they did give kind of like, maybe it was this, And I actually do understand that. Like I'm not upset about that. That was okay. But in the movie, it was ridiculous. They're in this like very clean cage with no food or water for at least a week. That was just ridiculous.
In the book as well, there's a well in the backyard of George's house, which is, again, a really big part of the book. There are entire chapters about this well where characters go out on a rope they have broken picture frames to make a path so they can feel with their feet without having to look how to get to the well. They've counted out how many steps the well is. They have a rope tied around their waist that another housemate is holding so they can pull them back in case anything comes. At one point, one of the characters hears something in the well,
Felix.
and then he hears something behind him. It's a whole panic, and
then they don't drink for a whole day.
And in the movie, they solve this simple problem by just allowing the characters to have tap water.
There was one scene. Well, this is something they changed.
There's one scene.
There's one scene where they take from a well, but we'll get into the other thing.
And that's 5 years into.
Yeah, that's 5 years afterward.
Yeah.
Where did this magic well come from?
And there's a scene where they get water from the well 5 years later, but then in the beginning, during one of the flash forwards, there's a scene where Mallory's running through the backyard and there's no well there. But later on in the movie, in the same backyard, there's a well.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird.
And they're in the same
house.
house.
Water was very high up. Wow. Did you know, they just used their hand and scooped water. They didn't even lower. That was really annoying. But the other thing was that they changed in the movie. There were these massive rapids before the split in the river that Mallory would have to look. And in the movie, Mallory's they go under this blanket. It was ridiculous. They go under this blanket, and she's like, okay, one of us has to look to be able to get through this. And the boy's like, I'll do it. And she's like, I get to choose. And then she eventually goes, no one's gonna look. Why? Why change it? Why? Hollywood really just takes things and is like, ooh, let's stretch everything as far as we possibly can to make everyone really upset. And it's really annoying.
And another really annoying thing that happened in the beginning when the whole town scene, when they're crashing the cars that didn't exist in the book, when that was happening, 3 or 4 cars exploded. Cars don't just explode. That doesn't happen.
That's something they changed, though.
It still happens.
No, yeah, and it was ridiculous. And in the scene where there's the split in the river in the book, it's this really profound part. I'm sorry I keep using the word profound. I guess I like that word today.
Prominent?
Yeah, but any word that is a synonym to profound or
starts with
bigger. Doesn't have to start with a P. But that was a big moment. And the reason that was a big moment was because Mallory hasn't looked outside for 4.5 years. 4.5 years. I cannot imagine that. I would not live if I didn't look outside. Definitely not. And 4.5 years. And she talks about it. It's this big thing. She talks about it multiple times where she's like, what are you more afraid of? What are you afraid of? Is it the creatures or is it what you're going to see? Is it the colors and the light and the world? It's this big part in the movie. For Mallory, it's super big. She hasn't seen the world, again, for 4.5 years. And then when she does, when she opens her eyes, she's like, oh my God. It's this amazing moment. And I feel like that would be if I was an actress, I would be honored to play a part like that. Where I get to pretend like I haven't seen the world in 4.5 years, and I get to experience all of the great emotion. She starts crying in the book. It's such a big part. And she gets them there because she looked. She was brave enough to take off her blindfold and look. And even before that, there's this part on the river where, as you know, she always asks the boy and the girl to listen, always listen. And so the boy's like, Mom, someone's here. And she's like, oh my God, it stops the boat. It literally stops the boat from moving. And it starts to lift Mallory's blindfold. And she goes, no, this is mine. And pulls it back down. First of all, wow. That was really the first time in the book I was like, Mallory, I might like you because she's
terrible otherwise.
She's pretty terrible. And I kind of understand, but she's pretty terrible. And it was such a beautiful part because she's like, no, this is mine. And I was like, yeah, good job.
That actually plays into one of our theories about the book because there's tons of different theories posed by the characters in the book.
Yeah.
They aren't really touched on at all in the movie, but one of the characters thinks that they could be aliens that came here, and I think the most prominent theory in the book is that we're two species that somehow ended up here. Maybe they were hiding and they came out, but we don't symbiotically react with each other.
Kind of.
Yeah, we hurt their existence and they hurt ours unintentionally. They're not trying to hurt us, and we think that that's what Josh wanted us to understand because of that scene, because the creature realized, oh, I'm going to hurt this child if I lift this blindfold, even though maybe I just want to make eye contact. And Mallory says, no, you're gonna hurt him, and the creature backs off.
Well, it was her own blindfold.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly what he's saying, because she said, no, this is mine. She pulls it back down, and then he literally moves and walks away. He or she, I don't really know.
Creature.
Yeah, the creature just walks away. And I feel like, in my head, I'm like, the creature's like, hey, what are you doing here? Why do you have a blindfold? And she's like, hey, this is mine. And he's like, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to upset you. And it just walks away. You know, I don't understand how they could be so evil and wanting to hurt people if it just walks away. You know, and maybe it's just one of the creatures. Maybe. But regardless, it happened. And that didn't happen in the movie, which was upsetting. Because that was a big part. That's not even one of those little things. That was a big part. Because then, almost immediately after that, she takes off the blindfold. You know? And if she had taken it off a split second before, she would have gone mad. But she didn't. So that was such a profound part, I feel. And they didn't do it like that in the movie. That was a big thing they missed. Absolutely. One of the biggest, I want to say. What do you think?
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. Another big thing that they missed was Gary. Gary in the book was a lot different. He's much ruder, and he's there at the house for a much longer time, and Olympia actually doesn't let him in. It's a group decision, just like anybody else getting let into the house.
Yeah. The only thing they were right about was that it was at night.
Yeah. So in the movie, Olympia lets Gary in, and he has this briefcase, and the briefcase is a big part because he tells the group what's in it, but nobody really believes him.
Yeah.
And Mallory actually steals his briefcase in the book while he's sleeping, goes into the cellar, and
Reads the thing.
reads this thing, which includes.
Yeah, it was Frank's notebook. In the book, Gary tells them, you know, what his situation was before coming to this house, and he's like, oh well, there was, you know, these people, they wanted to go outside, they wanted to look outside and you know, take these creatures on, and he was skeptical of it, like he didn't want to do that, and you know, there's this one man, Frank, who was writing, he wouldn't ever stop writing, and you know, one day Gary went and looked at his writings, and they were crazy, they were lunatic, and it was basically about things that, you know, man is the real creature that he fears, and it's not the creatures that are outside. You know, so Gary is saying that Frank believes that if you believe you're supposed to go mad, then you'll go mad. But if you believe you're not supposed to go mad, then you won't go mad. And again, another really big part wasn't in the movie, because Gary was there for like a night, and then everything goes wrong. And that's not what happened, because as he was saying, they all voted to let him in. It was during the night. Mallory wakes up, hears the knocking, wakes up Tom, then everyone's up, you know. They all vote to let him in. He like opens the suitcase, and no one questions, because it's a notebook, like a paper and like a toothbrush. So no one questions anything, and then Mallory's like, I don't trust him, I need to look at that notebook. And that's why that happens. But that was a big part they missed, because then Don and Gary,
they're buddies.
And apparently Don in the movie's name was Douglas, but that's something they changed, so we'll get into that later. But Don and Gary become super close. And Mallory is like, yeah, this isn't cool. Like, something is going on. And that's why she looks at the suitcase, and then when Tom and Jules gets back, Mallory's like, Gary has that notebook he was telling us about, and it's not okay, and they vote to get him out, and then they all close their eyes, and then that's it. But then they find out later that Gary was hiding in the house because of Dawn.
Yeah, so it was a pretty cool reveal and actually plot twist in the book because everybody had covered their eyes to banish Gary outside, and then later on in the big reveal we find out that Dawn had actually hid him in the cellar this whole time. So for weeks and weeks all these housemates are living in this house and there's somebody else living there and they don't even know that he's there. That's terrifying. And it actually plays a big role in Mallory's PTSD after everybody's dead because she's constantly worried, what if Gary's still in this house? He slipped past me once, he could slip past me again. And even if he's not in the house, he could be outside and I would have no idea because I can't open my eyes and he can.
Yeah, just watching them. Because, he doesn't go mad. Like he said, I've seen that or whatever. And, he doesn't go mad. So she's constantly like, he could be there, he could hurt me, he could hurt the kids. And again, it's a really big part. In the movie, they completely missed it. Completely missed it. And that was really big. There's so many big points in this book. This book was hard. I don't know. It was a hard read because of how taxing it was on my mind and body, but they just missed such big important parts. And the labor was in the middle of the night. And you know that because, Mallory was like, I have to lay down. And they're like, okay, go lay down. And she's like, I don't want to, but I have to, oh God. She goes to lay down. And then she, wakes up in a daze, and realizes she's been screaming for a while. And then they're like, oh my God, Olympia's already in labor for 2 hours. And then they take her up the cellar stairs, the ladder stairs, they call them.
Into the attic. Not the bedrooms, because there's an attic in the book, as well as the cellar. I guess in the movie they wanted a smaller space, but they didn't have to get...
It was such a big house, though.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Beautiful countertops, tap water that works.
It was a huge house in the movie.
For no reason. And that was another thing. In the movie, it's in California.
Oh, yeah. Another thing that they missed was that Tom had a daughter before all of this crazy stuff happened. And, it was a big deal for him to tell that to Mallory because he loved her and it was a big part of his life, and that was something that the movie missed. Again, a big deal. They were all of the people once Mallory and Olympia were giving birth all ended up going downstairs. All of them were dead except for Gary, Olympia, Mallory, and the babies by the time those babies popped out. And once the babies came out, that's when the creature was in the house. Olympia was like, whoa, you're not so terrible. And then horrifically hung herself by her
umbilical cord.
Oh, God, it was so terrible.
And that's something I'd like to comment on about Hollywood because there's so much that we've been exposed to that we're now desensitized to it. Like, in the movie, there's, people getting shot left and right, which there are no guns in this book.
Yeah.
At all.
There's one at the very end.
Oh,
when
yeah.
Constance, gets her.
Yeah. And in the movie, there's people getting set on fire, getting hit by cars, and cars blowing up left and right, and we just hardly bat an eye. And this book, Josh Malerman was like, are you used to this? Yes, I'm gonna put it over here. And now, instead of somebody being hanged by a rope, they're gonna hang themselves by an umbilical cord because you've never seen that before, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, and he did a good job with that. Hated it, but he did a good job with that. And again, Hollywood missed it. And
I kind of get that one because that would be X-rated.
That would be really, really pretty terrible. But also in the movie, Mallory opened her eyes right before she took Olympia's baby. That didn't happen. The entire time she had her eyes closed. And I do feel like that is a big deal. Again, because of the premise of the book. Mm-hmm. But she had her eyes closed the entire time. Let's see.
Another thing that the movie completely ignores from the book is that Tom dies in the slaughter. Right
among
after,
everyone else.
Yeah, everybody dies. It's Mallory, the dog and the 2 kids. Everybody dies. And in the movie, they kept Tom alive for
And they were a couple.
some reason. Yeah, in the book, it was kind of hinted at that they might be a love interest. They flirted a few times, but it was never in the narration. Mallory never expressed feelings toward him, and he never expressed them toward her. And then in the movie, they have a full-blown relationship. It's almost like the kids are both of theirs.
Yeah, which was completely wrong. Completely. Again, for no reason. There's no reason for it.
This was in the extra after the book part of the movie ended, which was about halfway through the movie, and then the last hour of the movie is just completely made up.
Yeah, just crazy stuff that's going on.
For no reason.
Crazy stuff. And the cribs were, like, over the cribs were barbed wire, and they weren't even really cribs, they were like boxes.
Yeah, Mallory had made these super secure prisons almost for the babies, so they couldn't leave, so they couldn't hurt themselves, made out of barbed wire and blankets, so they wouldn't be able to see, they wouldn't be able to leave.
Yeah, and another reason why that's an important part is because the boy is so smart. He realizes he figures out how to get out of the barbed wire, and she's like, what? Like, she's so confused. It actually was scary for her because she thought that there was a creature in the house.
Yeah.
You know, and it was another part that should have been in the movie, and it's a simple thing to add. And they didn't use bells, they used bicycle horns, and Mallory didn't find it. It was Tom and Jules when they went, oh, you know what, they did go to a supermarket, but it was only them two, and we didn't read about it. They just were like, we found a supermarket, like, it was really cool, and so we brought stuff back. And they found bicycle, like, horns, not these bells.
And there's actually a really cute moment in the book where Tom writes on Sharpie on each horn, each housemate's name, and everybody gets a bicycle horn. They all just stand there and honk them for a few minutes.
Yeah, it was cute. It was cute, and I feel like that should have been added because it was a nice, like, human part. It was like, hey, we're all still kind of here, you know, and I like that. And the other thing was in the movie, they just painted the car's windows and like had this GPS and went. And Tom and Jules never used a car. They walked on foot. They mapped out, like, their entire trip.
Yeah.
And Mallory, after everyone died, was the only one to use the car. There was no garage, and that's important because Mallory she painted the windows, she blocked the windows, she put things on the bumpers, all with a blindfold on, all being terrified that Gary might still be out there and that the creatures will get her the entire time, by herself.
There's actually a really cool part of the book when Tom and Jules are preparing to go out. They track their paces. They see how big is my footstep. Then they multiply it toward a mile scale so they can figure out how long it's going to take if I take exactly this step size. And then they get iPods and they choose songs that are the exact beat that they need to get them that distance.
Yeah.
So they can stay stepping in time.
Which is cool. I like that.
That was awesome.
Yeah. It was a cassette. Because George only had cassettes.
Yeah, because George wasn't. He was
like,
an old man.
He was like a 70-year-old man, as we aforementioned, if I used that right. And you know, again, Tom and Mal never a couple, and the babies were left home alone for hours, which, you know, that's when Victor led the way, obviously, as we talked about before. But Tom wasn't there again, and that's a big thing that I missed too, because she had to. I get this courage inside of her, this bravery, to leave these infant newborns by themselves for hours while she went out to look for ways to save their lives.
Or just hang out at a bar.
She was looking for bottles.
She sat down and had a few drinks.
That is true, but she was looking for bottles, okay?
And if I may tie these two together, kind of leaving the house is as scary as leaving a space station in a suit, which if you've seen Gravity, didn't work out too well.
Oh my god. Another part that would have been very easy to add was that there was a radio host. And this part, big miss. They like used the radio maybe twice in the movie, but in the book, all of the housemates, Dawn, Cheryl, Olympia, Mallory, Tom, who else am I missing? Did I get them all? I'm sorry if I missed someone. Tell me if I did. But all of the housemates, they would listen to this one radio host, you know, and
Live,
it was
not recording.
yeah. This guy was he slept in the station. I actually don't remember if it was on the TV or if it was a radio. I think it was a radio.
It was a radio.
Pretty sure it was. Sorry if I'm wrong, but it was like a human, again, another human moment for all of them. They would come together, they would sit wherever they were, they would be listening to this guy who kind of took this initiative to like give people this news, and then eventually he goes to kill himself, and that was a moment where they were all like, this is bad, you know, and that was right before I believe Tom decides to go out and like look for stuff, and it's a big moment for them.
That's another part that kind of ties the ribbon on this whole story, because the housemates are, again, slowly seeing society collapse around them, even though they're stuck inside this house. That was their one beacon outside, their one connection, and that died. And that's what inspired Tom to leave in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing with the children is they never had real children's toys. She never found them anywhere. She like whittled little toys out of wooden chairs and stuff. So they never had real toys, never real interactions, and that's another big part, because that's like how do you say, integral to children's lives, you know. And that was a big part. Like she took this maybe initiative or decided to make them toys, you know. And it's cool that she was able to do that. But in the movie, there was like this scene where they found a house and they were toys, and it was wrong. And go ahead.
There was one more thing in the movie. Boy and girl, when they leave the house, have clothes on, baby clothes. Where did they get these clothes? We don't know. But in the book, they explain it.
Yes.
They find the clothes.
Exactly. And I believe last thing that we have for the things that the movie missed was that when Mallory, boy and girl were on the river going to the split had a recording of Tom's voice repeated on a loop. And it's explained in the book as to why. And that was a big part of what they missed, because in the movie, for 5 years, Mallory and Tom are living together as this couple with these two kids, and didn't happen. And in the book, Tom is dead for the 4 years that she raises the children, and her thoughts are always toward Tom. They're always like, you know, Tom would tell you that you're being a great mother. Tom would, you know, help you with this. Tom would do that. Tom would help you on the river. I wish Tom were here. Tom. Always Tom. And when she hears his voice, it's like, oh my God. You know, it hurts.
And it's real. It's not a hallucination or anything. They're actually playing a recording of Tom's voicemail that he left them.
Yeah, because they called like a bunch of numbers, and they reached that number. And that was a big part, because it hurt her. It was emotional, and that's big. And they missed that. And I believe that that's the last thing that we have for things that they missed.
Yeah, I actually have one more. If you look closely at the cover of this book here, there's
yes.
a dial phone, which is important enough to the story that Josh Malerman chose this to be the cover of the book, and they don't talk about it at all in the movie.
Yes.
In the book, the whole team makes phone calls out. They actually have a phone book, and they call every single number in the yellow pages. They go from cover to cover, leaving voicemails to people, telling them that they're in a safe house. They have a safe place for people to come and arrive and survive together. And that's ignored.
They have like walkie-talkies.
Yeah, there's a walkie-talkie in the movie that's completely non-existent in the book.
Where do they even, they don't explain where they get the walkie-talkies at all. And Mallory constantly tries them on the river, and it's weird, and it doesn't make any sense. But that's what we have for things that we missed. The things that the movie missed.
So now we're going to talk about some big things and some little things that were changed in the book-to-movie adaptation of Bird Box. To start off with, we're going to start with a small thing in the very beginning of the movie and the book, and that's that Mallory didn't carry the girl to the boat. Both children were fully capable of walking independently to their destination.
Although they did hold hands, all of them.
So, I guess not independently, but still walking.
Yeah. They also started really early in the morning. They started, I don't know, like 6 a.m. I'm pretty sure she said, like something like that. They started
In the book.
really early, and in the movie, it was nighttime after them being on the river for 6 hours, and they were on the river for 2 days, and that did not happen.
In the book, the canoe journey it was a canoe, right? It wasn't a rowboat.
I don't remember if it was a canoe or a rowboat, but I know that she was rowing. I think it was a rowboat.
Okay. Either way, it's stated very clearly in the book that the journey is only 20 miles, which would only take a few hours.
Depending.
Well, she's going downstream.
No, and she did get really hurt though. So I mean, the thing is though, it just took her less than a day, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what we think it would have taken, it took less than a day, and it took 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on canoe trips that were we did 15 miles in 4 hours downstream. So she could have easily gotten to her destination in 6 hours, but instead they decided to make the river like 200 miles long, and it'd take her like almost 3 days.
Mhm. Yeah, and another little thing was that when they finally get down to the river, the boat was already in the water, and that's a little thing, but I don't know. I feel like putting in the movie that the boat was on land, covered in like brush, didn't even like that just made it harder. It just Hollywooded it up. It was in the water. It could have stayed like that. It was just so much easier that way anyway.
Another big thing that they did in the movie recurringly, which wasn't in the book at all, was taking off blindfolds outside of the safe house. That never happened in the book at all.
Yeah, that was a big thing for them. On the river, never taking off your blindfold, and that was something that they changed.
They frequently go under blankets on the boat and have meetings, which is completely unnecessary. You can't hear each other better under a blanket. It's just an unnecessary risk. You might see the creature underneath the blanket. Why would you do that?
Yeah. I swear there was one part in the movie where I definitely saw her look outside.
She did, yeah. They were underneath the blanket.
It was under, and it was like up a little bit, and she looked, and then went back, and I was like, I can see the light coming through, and it wasn't like, what's that word? Like stopped by a blanket. It didn't look different. It looked like just sun was coming in. Like the blanket was like over, because she was using a jacket at that moment. I think that's why. But whatever. Another thing was again just what was up with the heck?
The horses.
What was up with the horses?
Why?
That was so weird.
I think
What was the point of that?
The producer or writer or director must have had something with
They're
horses.
obsessed with horses.
It's really bizarre.
It was so
They
strange.
took out all the dogs and they put in horses instead.
I just don't understand why a horse was running alongside a car. That
On
was
the
the weirdest
news.
thing. Yeah, that was so weird. I can't even. Oh, and Douglas in the movie, who's I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be Don. He had some sort of a shotgun, and he was married. And in the movie, he looked like he was like 60 something. In the book, he was probably in his 40s, maybe younger, 30s maybe. And he wasn't married, and he didn't have a shotgun.
And he wasn't an alcoholic either.
Yeah, I mean, like, they all had, like, a fun little night where they, like, drank and, had fun. And that was the night that Olympia went over. Or that was why Olympia went over, because she heard people. I don't remember if it was the same night or if it was the next day or something, but yeah, that's why Olympia went over, because she heard the music and, like, the partying and stuff, but none of them were alcoholics. They didn't have that much booze. They had one, like, thing of rum, and that was it.
Which Tom got from the store when he went. And
well, that was awkward.
Okay, different rum.
Yeah.
But later on in the movie, Mallory has a pistol, which they don't explain where she got that from.
She also had a machete.
Yeah, which is a little bit more explainable, but
they didn't have that.
Yeah, they didn't have that in the book either.
Yeah, no, that was ridiculous.
So Mallory exhibits a very profound expertise in firearms in the movie, and that's not mentioned once in the book. Again, in the book, the only firearm is at the very end
Yeah, with that one person. That's it.
with Constance, and she said that was just for wild animals. But Mallory unloads all of the shells from a shotgun.
I don't even understand why she did that. I was confused the whole time.
A new person comes into the house, and Mallory goes.
Takes all of the shells out.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was very strange. And
yeah, it didn't make any sense. But I mean, regardless, there was no shotgun.
Yeah, and then there's also a pistol later, which they don't explain how they get that. And it's a very closed system. It's not like they can just go out and get whatever they want.
Yeah, we did talk about that already though with the machete.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So that was weird. And then the number of the people that were in the house was at least one person more, or maybe two people more.
One or two people more.
Yeah.
In the book, there was Mallory,
Don,
Tom,
Tom,
who was Douglas in the movie.
We think Tom, Jules, Felix, Olympia,
Cheryl,
and that's it.
and the dog. He counts.
But people-wise, it was only 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie, there was Mallory, Olympia, Tom, George, Douglas,
Cop,
the almost cop woman, the drug
drug
addict, the old woman, and Charlie. So there were 2 more people than there should have been.
And no dogs.
And no dogs at all. I didn't know any of the names except for Mallory, Olympia, Tom, and George and Charlie. Like those are the only and Douglas.
And Gary.
Oh yeah, Gary was also there. But
That's
so I guess we don't know the name of those 3 people. Who the heck were those 3 people?
And they didn't really provide any benefit to the story.
Not at all.
Except for that Charlie died, but that wasn't like
saving them.
Yeah, that was like a Hollywood. Oh, he died.
You're like, oh, he sacrificed his life for them. You know, it didn't need to. It wasn't there. It didn't need to be there at all. It was really stupid.
But we're forgetting the other 2, the almost cop and the drug addict, really provided a huge benefit.
You're right, with that sex scene.
The sex scene that advanced the plot in no way, shape, or form.
What do you mean?
What did we learn from
it? The book didn't have any random sex scenes in it?
No, it didn't. Because it
oh
wouldn't.
My God.
If it did, it wouldn't have gotten past the publisher.
Oh man, because it wouldn't have advanced the story at all? Yeah. Man. How crazy. Yeah. And, there was George's death. Mallory and Olympia were not there. They were there months later. And it didn't look like an accident. It wasn't supposed to be an accident. In the movie, you talk about the cameras.
Yeah, so in the movie, George explicitly says these are heat cameras, which means the colored cameras that, you look at it.
Heat signature.
Yeah, you see red for hot, blue for cold, and everything in between. And then we see in a shot soon after that they're just infrared security cameras.
Yeah, like the cameras that just see in the dark.
And it wasn't like George was like, oh, they're heat cameras. He goes, they're cameras. They're heat cameras that show the heat signatures. So it's just colors. He explicitly says.
He actually said that. I don't know if he said just colors, but he said the heat thing. And we were like, okay, because at first we were like, wait, but that wasn't in the book. And then I was like, well, those aren't heat signature cameras. And that's also not how he did it. He took a film camera. Strange.
That's important.
I mean, he was a really old man. I can see how he would have that, but whatever. So it was a film camera. He filmed 5 hours.
That's a lot of film.
And then they completely glossed over the fact that he would have to, what is it called, process the film? Or
yeah, so he would need a dark
prep
room
the film,
and all of the chemicals, which are expensive, and if he was that old, he probably had the equipment from doing it as an amateur, which at this year, it's probably at least 40-year-old equipment.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe older than that.
Sure, maybe it's his hobby. But they didn't talk about it in the book, which was just, that was annoying for the book. That's a quarrel that we had. That was annoying for the book. But then he watches it, and he's like, ah, and he starts to go crazy, he starts yelling, And the people in the house, and again, Mallory and Olympia aren't there yet. The people in the house go up to the door. They don't open the door. They're just like, what do we do? You know, like they're so upset. And then they hear like these terrible noises. And when they go in to look, he had ripped through, and the rope had gone through his skin to his bones.
To his bones.
As,
gross.
yeah, and, you know, we all know that because we read the book. And so, seeing in the movie, they all burst into the door. And the TV flips. Not sure how that happened, actually, not thinking about it. But the TV somehow flips, and then they all cover their eyes, like, oh, and they cover their eyes, and Douglas stomps on it. And George, like, tips the chair, and, like, it looks like he accidentally slams his head on, like, concrete or something.
On the desk.
It was like, yeah, it was.
And then that's another important human moment that we miss in the book because it was film. So all of the housemates got together and they got the film and they burned it together to destroy it so nobody else would be able to see it.
Yeah, and just that was like this really essential part for Tom. You know, George was this wonderful old man who Tom really looked up to.
He was visionary.
Yeah, he wanted to be the cure, and Tom even says, he's like, if that man had gone about it a different way, he would have found the way for us to see outside. He would have been the one to do it. You know, I just got chills thinking about it, but it really is another human moment, and I feel like Hollywood constantly takes human moments away. Like, they don't want us to see them, and it's frustrating because Tom and George were so close. You know, George is the reason that Tom goes out to think the way he does, and, you know, steps up to be a leader. It's a big moment, and it was taken away, and that's for no reason. It's really just silly. It didn't need to be taken away. It just didn't.
Another thing was the painting of the car, which in the movie we see them apply black or black-like paint, several coats on the windows,
Like thick.
Of the car, and then on the inside we see that they plastered on newspapers to cover all the windows and the windshield and back windshield and this and that. But somehow light still gets into the car.
Yeah, like it was bright in the car when they were driving.
Strange.
And they could see the shadow of the creature.
Yeah, and in the book, nobody drives except Mallory to get to George's house from her rental with Shannon/Jessica.
Yeah. And
after that, when she goes to the store.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Olympia in the movie, they say, you know, like Mallory arrives and it's like 3 days later, and Olympia arrives and is like, please help me. And Tom is like, okay, take this blanket and block my view so that when I open the door I don't see anything. Instead of like in the book, easily he could just block his eyes or close them, but no. And then Olympia comes in and she's like, I ran out of rations. I tried to make them last as long as I could, but I was afraid I was starving the baby. It's been 3 days.
3 days?
It's been 3 days. How did she expend all of the rations? How did she do that? Or did she have like a cup of rice and beans?
Yeah.
Like, how did she do that? I don't understand. That makes no sense. And they're all like, yes, this makes sense. Absolutely. She expended yes. And she says that she walked door to door just waiting for people. I mean, in the book she lived like almost right next door, I think. If
I
not,
think she did live
I
next
think
door.
I think
Yeah.
it was right next door, but I can't remember exactly. But I'm pretty sure it was right next door. So it was just silly. You know, it was another thing that was like, why not just do it the right way? You know, why make people question that? You know, even if I hadn't read the book, which I always like to do if it's a book to movie, what is that called? Adaptation. And like, if I hadn't read the book, I still would have been like, 3 days. And all of her food is gone? My God, that baby must be fat. Like, that's crazy.
But the baby wasn't fat.
Oh yeah, no. When she gave birth, it was like this little baby girl, but it was just silly. It didn't make any sense. And the people never even actually used a car. It was only Mallory. Once the babies were born, they never used a car, and there was not a garage.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this car. Another one is there's like a nice, it's a very artfully done, well done scene where they paint the car. It's some nice close-up shots. It's very satisfying. It felt to me like when you're painting really thick paint and you feel it under the brush. I felt that.
They did the same thing with Mallory in the beginning as a painter.
Yeah, so it was a cool parallel.
Yeah, except it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen in the book, but we get this nice low shot of the front bumper of the car while they're painting it in the garage. And something interesting about that was the license plate said California. In the book, they're in Michigan. Why did you change that?
Yeah, because a big part was Mallory was so skeptical almost the whole time before she hadn't killed herself, because Alaska, even though it's in the United States, is still kind of far. But if you're in California, that's right there. It's right there. So that would have been a much different story. I guess that could be why in the movie they like muted the TV right before the Alaska report came on, and they were like, "Oh, they didn't see the Alaska report," you know?
Yeah, and then that was another thing in the book. It was different with the Alaska report.
It was a big deal. Yeah, it was absolutely a big deal. That's kind of what helped Mallory not be so skeptical, but still kind of like, oh, maybe it's okay, you know? But
and there's two things here. There's the Russia report, which I don't want you guys to feel like we're getting confused with. The Russia report was the first major incident that reached the news. We're just referring to the incident in Alaska as the Alaska report because it sounds nicer and it matches the Russia report.
Yeah.
So another thing that was very quarrelsome to us was the use of GPS in the movie, which it was strange tying a car to George's character, because in the book he was very old, but in the movie he's a middle-aged man. So older people tend to have either the newest car that just came out this year or a car that they've been holding on to for 30 or 40 years that they keep fixing and the auto parts store no longer sells parts for. So this dude must be like the world's best stockbroker or something, because the house in the movie is huge and unnecessarily luxurious.
It was really big.
And the car is like, it looks like this year, brand new. I'm actually surprised that it wasn't product placed like Skinny Pop was in the grocery store. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
It was like, oh, we're looking in the grocery store. Skinny Pop.
Yeah.
It's the apocalypse. What's poppin'?
Freaking popcorn.
You don't want Skinny Pop in the apocalypse. You want high density, lightweight foods.
Yeah, but my biggest thing with the GPS, like, if there was a GPS, their life would have been freaking easy. Well, easy according to the standards of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But seriously, it wasn't easy. And again, the housemates never used the GPS. Only Mallory did when she went to go raid the stores, and that was it. And if she had a GPS, she wouldn't have been so afraid. And you know what? In the book, not having that GPS, literally driving blind, takes courage. Like, none of us would ever do that. You know, you can't imagine doing that in this life. And she was brave enough. She had that courage to go and do that.
Yeah. And the car had 6
sensors.
What is it called? Proximity sensors. On the digital display. And something that really bothered me about the digital display was at one point Tom has to back up because he hit something, right? But wouldn't he have seen the creatures in the rear view camera?
No, they covered that up.
With tape?
Yeah. Remember I said it when we were watching the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, they covered that. I watched it happen. I was like, hey, they think that.
That's a nice fix.
I guess. All right. I guess you didn't hear me, but yeah, they took at least there there you go. One good thing about the movie. They took care of that rear view camera.
Mm.
But I guess not well enough for everyone to see. 50% saw. The other 50 did not.
Just like 50% of people kill themselves and the other 50% kill others.
Except that's not how it's supposed to be. In the book, it wasn't.
In the book they kill others and then they kill themselves, right?
Yeah, it was
Mostly.
Just going crazy and then be like, ah, and then you have no one else to kill, so you kill yourself.
Yeah, in the movie, there's like zombies almost walking around, like, help me, take off the blindfold.
Yeah, it was like random crazy people.
Yeah.
There weren't random crazy people,
Well,
and like the movie also showed like their eyes like changed. That didn't happen. The creatures didn't physically change your body. They just, we were talking about this earlier. It's like two worlds colliding. I think that was something George mentioned in the book. It's like two worlds almost colliding, so we're not able to process each other.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Another thing that was really bothersome about the movie was there was a scene the same scene where they're in the car driving to the supermarket with Charlie, who, once again, this scene didn't exist. Half the people in the car didn't exist. The car didn't exist. Anyway.
Oh, and just a bunch of invisible stuff.
There's a Cessna airplane, single engine airplane, crashed in the middle of the road.
Yeah, like the tiny ones, like the one-man ones. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Who was just...
Either the creatures fly, or the dude was like, hey, I'm out of gas.
Instead of like trying...
Yeah, I mean,
that was ridiculous.
You're in California, I get it if you're like over a city, but I mean, there had to be somewhere other than a suburban street to crash land.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
And why was it needed?
And there was also stuff still burning, like weeks.
There was like black smoke. That was so ridiculous. Yeah, and you could also see the shadows of the creatures in the book. The whole point of the reason it was so terrifying was because you literally see nothing. There is nothing you can see, but then you go mad. Like, you go insane once you see this nothing thing. You know? And it was just insane because in the movie, you see the shadow of the creature. And there's, right before George died, in the infrared, not heat signature camera, like these leaves like start going, you know, in like this spiral formation, and then this shadow starts coming in, and like these flowers that are standing upright like wilt. I was like, what? And it happens nowhere else. No other flowers wilt around them. And just each time in the movie that you're supposed to know that a creature is there, like leaves start to move, and then you hear like a. That didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That's why it was so scary in the book, because you don't know. If in the book you heard things, you heard it before it came, why would they need to blindfold themselves? Mm-hmm. Just every time you hear it, just be like, all right, I'm going to look this way. Oh, now I look this. All right, let's just look this way. Like, you would just keep knowing not to look that way. And that's why it was so scary in the book. And there were also, like, whispering, like, terrifying, like, sweet little nothings almost in everyone's ears to get them to look at the creature.
And the people were, like, hallucinating. They basically took the idea from Josh Malerman that if you look at this thing, you die, and then they gave it to, like, some sort of crazy writer that, I don't know, does something. He throws the ideas into a shredder and then tapes the pieces back together in the wrong order, and that's what they got.
I like that. I like that.
And so
that makes sense.
These things whisper to them. There's somebody in the beginning that goes, Mom?
And just starts walking away. And we were like...
Yeah, so they see, like, dead loved ones. And they do allude to that a little bit. Charlie has a line in the beginning where he's like, they're creatures from hell, and they can take the form of the loss that was most painful to you.
Oh my god, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, they do that. So it's like, hey, we explained it. But
you didn't.
You didn't take it from the book, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But the entire supermarket scene just like...
It didn't happen.
There was one time Tom and Jules went to a supermarket, but we don't see that happen in the book. And it was like in passing, they do this 3-mile walk to Tom's house, and then they find a supermarket along the way. They go in and they get the bicycle horns and whatever, and like that's what happens. We don't go there. We don't see that. There were no random birds being sold in a supermarket. That's a very unsanitary. It was just not there, but.
And it was also really clearly said Charlie was like the manager, I guess. At the
Some
time.
sort of a manager, maybe like a key holder.
Yeah. So he said that he closed the supermarket, right? So then they go into the supermarket, and there's just stuff everywhere.
Oh yeah, it was like
ransacked, but only halfway. Like somebody walked in, like on the prop team, and was like, onto the
leave
floor.
that shelf intact.
Yeah, leave the skinny pop.
All of that. Yeah, there was no skinny pop gone. That's a good point.
Oh, that's like the reverse of product placement. Even in the end of the world, people didn't want to take your skinny pop. We like skinny pop. It's good.
That's so funny.
But,
I do. The cheddar one makes me sick though. But they are. But yeah, no, that's really funny. I didn't even think about that. Even toward the end of the world, nobody wanted to take your skinny pop.
Yeah.
But yeah, just we were talking about that while we were watching the movie. If this guy locked up, number one, weren't there crazy people going everywhere? How did he get them out?
Yeah, was he like, all right,
Let's
I
go, everyone.
gotta be home.
Time to pack
Guys.
up. Yeah, like no, he didn't do that because then he all of a sudden met George and went into his house.
Mhm.
And also, if you locked up, why were like the shelves half empty
Mhm.
and not everything gone or nothing taken?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. No windows broken. Nothing like that. That was a very silly scene.
Yeah, and
Very silly.
the scene was like 5 to 7 minutes. I want to say maybe a little bit longer than that. And in that time, Douglas/Don got a bottle of whiskey.
Oh my
I think he later says that it's whiskey, and
Yeah.
he gets halfway through the bottle in less than 7 minutes.
It was a few minutes, yeah.
And he's like, woo!
He's like completely wasted.
And it's the only nice moment that we see of him. It's the only time he's like.
But then he's still a jerk right after.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They actually threw a line in there that in this scene that lets you know that Douglas/Don is a Trump supporter. He said, "What did he say? Let's make this apocalypse great again," or something like that.
Yeah, I don't
world
remember.
Great again.
It was something. Yeah, the end of the world. I think it was. Another thing about the supermarket was Tom comes up to him. They all just have like one cart, like they're all very small carts, and they're just like one. And they're all like walking down the aisles, like I'm just gonna take this can. Oh, I want to take this can. But just pile that on in there, number
real.
one. But regardless, so she's taking like a can here and there, and Tom goes up and he goes, "Here, gonna need this," or whatever he says, and it's like one pack of like 24 diapers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And we were all laughing as we were watching this movie because we're like, she's gonna need a whole lot more. Not even that. Get reusable diapers.
Yeah, because
That's what you need at the end of the world.
do you know what those are made out of?
Plastic
And plastic.
is evil, as we all know. Unless it's recycled, because it will never leave this world. So we have to deal with it in some way.
Just like our solar lights, which we're actually using to shoot right now. These are by a company called Luci Outdoors. They're wonderful, rechargeable solar lights made out of old lights of
All Luci Lights, they're
Yeah.
recycled.
So when these break, you send them in to the company, and they use the parts from the old ones and build new ones. They're waterproof. They float. You can submerge them. In 7 hours, in direct sunlight, they're fully charged, and the battery will last 24 hours, which is great. These are the nice, like, golden yellow finish. This is our favorite
Opaque, I think.
kind of light. Yeah.
Something like that.
They also sell
Lucy should pay us right now.
other versions. Yeah, this is our product placement for this episode because I'm in love with these things right now. Really, I am. They're
Sponsored
awesome.
by no one.
Yet.
Viewers like you. But anyway, Um, yeah, so they should definitely be getting calm down there, kid. They should definitely be getting reusable diapers. Like,
Yeah.
where are you gonna put all the diapers? They're just gonna be sitting in the house. Disgusting. Disgusted. But yeah, so it's just ridiculous. And then Mallory and Tom are like flirting away. And they even make a joke about it in the movie that Mallory's like, I could have been your babysitter. I'm like, well, see, in the book, Tom was a little bit older than Mallory.
Yeah, but
by like a few years.
not twice his age.
Not at all. And also, they never, like, strictly flirted. They definitely loved each other. 100%. And
it's never covered in the narration.
Yeah.
Mallory never expresses a thought. And
they're just humans.
Tom.
They're just humans living.
And it might have been because they were in close proximity, but it was never just the two of them because Tom died when he was supposed to in the book.
Yep. I mean, I didn't want him to. I would love to have him back, but he's not. You know, he's not there. But yeah, it was silly because they flirted multiple times and then they were together for 5 years. What? No! Didn't happen. Silly. It was very silly. And, oh yeah, and in the supermarket, why didn't they fill the car up?
The doors were wide enough. We looked. We rewound it and watched it. You literally could have backed the car into the supermarket and filled it. But instead, when they get back to the house, what do we see that they brought?
Like
two grocery bags, not even full. Plastic is evil. Plastic grocery bags.
I mean, maybe we didn't see them bring stuff in. Maybe.
But still.
Maybe.
Why not? It's so dangerous going outside. Why not get as much as you possibly can?
And it was only like 6 miles away in the movie, and they had the GPS, so they should have just gone, filled up the car, gone back, gone one more time, filled up the car. Do that for like a few hours, and you're good. You have the whole entire supermarket. But then something Douglas brought up was like, why don't we just stay here in his drunken messiness? It's like, why don't we just stay here? Great idea. Go get the others. Stay there.
Yeah, I think they didn't want to stay there because of fish fingers, which I didn't understand that because the door was a freezer door.
Oh, I was confused about that too.
Yeah, I don't know if it was to the outside.
I think it was outside.
Yeah, I think it was outside as well, but why did it have a freezer door on it?
I was also confused.
But the main reason I say it was outside was because Charlie says that he locked everything up, and if he locked everything up, he padlocked all of his co-workers inside the building, which I don't think he did. Cause
he didn't.
He
said
really
he didn't.
Meek, and he's pushover.
You know, he said he was the last one there, and then he locked up. And that was definitely outside because there was a creature there. And Charlie died.
Yeah, I was just thinking because it was like seafood freezer aisle.
Right,
Maybe
yeah.
it's a freezer. But we also get glimpses at other bodies.
Yeah.
Outside, which...
It was so weird.
I just don't really understand because Charlie ran outside. He could have just covered his eyes and kept running and screaming, and they would have found him eventually.
That's true, but I actually think that what was his name? Fishfingers.
Yeah.
I actually think that he's the one that killed him.
Well, yeah, because
you
could
hear
open
like
his eyes.
you hear something,
Yeah.
you know, like something hit him or something, and then you see blood on the floor. So he probably killed him, but whatever. When they get back.
Wait a second. If that's an outside, okay, so if you haven't seen the movie, Charlie gets pummeled or whatever, stabbed right outside the door, and blood seeps through. That couldn't have been to outside or a freezer door because what do they do when it rains? Does the whole store just get flooded?
Oh
What
my
about
God.
when, I was gonna say when the ice melts, but it's California. You don't have that privilege. Sorry. That was rude. There's droughts in California. I'm sorry. Sorry. We sympathize with you.
Cut. We'll just cut that part out, guys.
Ooh, that was really rude.
It's okay. You didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I
okay.
still love you.
That's so rude.
Okay.
Oh,
I didn't say anything like that, but alright, I appreciate it.
Back
so anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you do when it rains? Oh, maybe they're in Southern California, in which case it never rains. It's a song.
What are you doing?
It's a song.
What are you doing?
Alright.
So, when they got back to the house, Douglas and Mallory are talking.
Yeah.
And Mallory's like, oh, you're just like my dad. Because he was an a-hole. And I'm pretty sure we talked about their parents before. They weren't jerks. What are you doing? They weren't jerks. They were like good people.
Yeah, Mallory loved them, and there's a whole part of the chapter
Yeah.
where Mallory talks about how her parents lived in northern Michigan by the Great Lakes, and that's also why Michigan is important in there. And she tries to call her mom, which Mallory does try and call her mom in the beginning of the movie once.
That wasn't even scripted.
Or not scripted right now.
No.
Loosely. Go on.
Okay. Oh yeah, she didn't drink alcohol when she was pregnant.
Yeah, what's that about? We get it, you're a bad mother, Mallory, but you're not a murderer. Well,
she didn't murder anyone, you weirdo.
No, she's trying to. Well, she could have killed the baby.
Thanks for
But
that.
she did actually later on. She killed the guy in the river.
In the movie, not in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I don't remember if we talked about that actually. It was weird. The guy in the river. In the book, was on a boat with a motor, and he comes up behind them.
That's how they heard them. The boy and girl heard the man miles away, but instead it's a dude that like saw the creature while he was in the middle of fly fishing and has just been standing in water for like 4 months. No, sorry, 5 years. And he's just like.
He wasn't standing in the water the whole time.
How do we know though? We don't know. The only thing we know is what we see on screen.
Thanks. But yeah, I mean, in the book they hear a motorboat, and the guy's like, "Hey, it's all right. You know, I've been here." He's like, "There's no creatures on the river." And she's like, "Dude, get away from me." And you know, he's like, "Listen, I've seen one." She's like, "Ha, you're definitely insane." I still want that explained to me. Like, I wish that we could go to that guy's life and kind of see what was going on.
Yeah, well.
Was he also insane? Was he Gary?
Yeah, that was the.
I think about that a lot, honestly.
The conclusion that we reached at the end of the movie was that all the people who had opened their eyes and are still alive, which this is a theory that we crafted also while we were reading the book, but the movie was like, yeah, this is it, and they really drilled it into you. But in the book, it's kind of left open to our interpretation why some people can open their eyes and why some people can't.
Yeah.
But we kind of figured out that the people who were already mad in the old way, as Josh Malerman puts it in the book, is they can see the creatures and they don't go crazy because they're already crazy.
Yeah, they're already like something's not right up there, you know. So that's why they were able to be okay with it. I would love to think that if I was in that world, I could open my eyes and be totally fine if I saw those creatures.
Well, there's the whole thing where if you one of the ideas in both the book and the movie is that if you don't expect to go crazy when you see them, you won't.
Yeah, like Gary's philosophy was like, they go mad because they think they're supposed to, which I don't think that's... Because the first victim wasn't like, oh, if I see this crazy thing, I'm supposed to go crazy. Absolutely not. That's not what happened. That's stupid. That's the ravings of a madman, you know? Yeah, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure she didn't drink when she was pregnant. Tell us if we're wrong in the comments, but I don't remember that happening, unless it was at that party where they all had rum. But I didn't think that Mallory, like, partook in that.
Yeah.
I don't know, tell us if we're wrong now.
Another thing was, do you remember our two friends from the sex scene that provided no other plot relevance?
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
They come back and steal a car that also didn't exist in the book.
Yeah, the same car that they used to go to the supermarket, because Douglas is like, why don't we just stay here in the supermarket? And that girl, you can see she's kind of like, And then her and the drug addict go and stay in the supermarket and steal that car.
And they stole pillows too, which is
they're
marginally
like,
worse.
Yeah, that was... Well, I mean, I guess they needed to sleep on something.
Yeah, but...
I don't know. I don't know why they... It was literally 6 miles away. All they had to do was keep bringing food over there. Like, why would you want to sleep in a cold supermarket?
Well, maybe
with nobody.
Maybe they weren't in the freezer aisle.
You're funny. Yeah, there was no garage. And the girl, the little girl, her daughter, while they were on the river, was sitting behind her while they were on the
So
river.
they were on either side of Mallory.
Yeah, so they could hear maximum hearingness. Maximum hearing.
Maximum audio awareness.
Maximum auditory.
Sensory.
No,
ability.
what is that word? Auditory perfection.
Perception.
Perfection. That's
Sure.
what I was going for. Okay. And, yeah, there was no truck in the water that almost capsized the boat, and then the boy fell out, and then all their stuff fell out. That was really annoying.
That didn't happen.
They never
at
went
all.
on land. They never went on land. They literally never went on land. I'm so mad about that. How would she have found it? Like, okay, fine, yeah, she hit the truck, so she's like, there must be land here. No, oh, what?
Well,
And she, like, perfectly went up on the land.
It was like either Sandra Bullock could actually see it in the movie, she could actually see where she was going, or they had to redo that take so many times that she had it memorized where she was going. But either way, it gave the illusion that Mallory knew where she was going, which isn't the case.
Absolutely not. She was terrified and blind the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was ridiculous.
And they didn't, even if in the book, if they had lost the food, if they had lost the blankets, it wouldn't have mattered because they were only on the river for a few hours, not like 3 days.
I mean, maybe it might have been like 12 hours or something like that.
It was during the day, so the sun was out the whole time.
Yeah, the entire time. It never. Yeah, that's right. So it wasn't 12 hours then.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not because the sun was out the entire time.
And it's fall, right? Late fall, I think.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's late fall because in the book they pay really clear attention to making Mallory have like a sensory overload when she takes off her blindfold to see the split in the river because of
she
the
does
colors.
See all the colors.
The colors.
Right.
So
that's a good way of thinking about that. Maybe it was in the fall.
That's why I thought it was fall because it's cold and it's also colors. So it can't be spring, can't be winter. Yeah, it was cold because she brought the blankets. Otherwise, she wouldn't have brought the blankets.
Well, in the book, she only brought one blanket, and it was the girl's blanket.
Because she's an idiot.
Well, that means it might not have been cold.
No, it is cold because the kid fell in the water and goes, I'm cold. Remember, and they were all...
That was in the movie. The movie is already very wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sticking with that it's in the autumn.
Okay, that's totally fine. But they never disobeyed. Literally ever. And the girl disobeyed like twice at least in that movie. Mm-hmm. But they never disobeyed. She said something, they were like, yep. And that's such a big point because Mallory was saying, like, this isn't childhood. You know, this sucks. Like, I hate that I have to be this way. She didn't have to be that way. I will argue. We don't have to cover that now.
Positive reinforcement.
Exactly.
And also, in the book, Mallory continually threatens to hit the kids and sometimes does if they disobey, and that was and that's how she trained them when they were infants to wake up.
Swat them. Yeah,
she trained them with a fly swatter so that when they woke up they had to have their eyes closed, and if they woke up with their eyes open she would hit them with a fly swatter.
Yeah. And I just like they never disobeyed, and she commented on it many times because it made her sad. You know, she commented on how like her parents would be like, no sleeping on the couch downstairs. So she went, okay. She literally brought her mattress downstairs to sleep on her mattress because it wasn't the couch. You know, things like that. And she was like, they don't have these fundamentals of childhood. You know, they don't have that. And it made her sad because they never disobeyed. It was always, yes, mommy, I hear this. This is what things like that.
And that's another thing with mommy. In the movie, they call her Mallory.
Oh, yeah, that
Why
was
not
weird.
Mommy? We still get the opportunity to understand that the main character's name is Mallory. There are adults in the movie
already
that
knew.
call her that. Why?
Yeah, her name was Mallory, and they called her Mommy. And there was no point to take that out.
That's almost worse than calling your kids boy and girl for 5 years, the first 5 years of their life.
No, that's definitely worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, girl and boys, it's like almost abuse.
Yeah, I think the best character in the movie was the doctor.
Yeah, I think so too. But she wasn't there. She wasn't real.
In the book, though, the best character was definitely Tom, who was pretty much flawless, but believably flawless.
Yeah, because it wasn't like he didn't have any flaws. It was just like he just tried so hard.
He tried too hard, and that's
not why he died.
I think it might be. We don't get to see Tom's death. We just know that his body's there.
I don't think that he was crazy when he was going up the cellar steps.
No, I don't think so either. He was. My point is that he was trying so hard because he knew that the two women were in the attic and he was trying to save them. If he had locked himself somewhere, like Charlie would have, or like most of the other people would have.
Or he could have killed the others.
I don't think Tom did. I don't think Tom would have done that. That's not to say that he was already crazy.
I don't think he was, because why would he have gone up to the attic and been like, please let me in? You know, why would he have done that? If he was crazy. If he was crazy, he'd be like, let me in! Like, going insane. But
yeah.
He didn't do that.
Like at the end of Hereditary, the mom.
Stop. Why would you do that? Why? We're in a dark basement.
We're in the studio, which is the dark basement.
Yeah.
Support us on Patreon and GoFundMe.
Olympia didn't let Gary in. That was silly. Mallory heard the knocking.
In the middle of the night.
Then she woke Tom up. Then everyone kind of woke up. And then Tom was like, I vote no. And everyone else voted yes. Oh, no. Cheryl also voted no. But everyone else voted yes. And then they let Gary in. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, everything in the book is up to a communal vote, which is really essential when you're living in such a tight spot that you can't leave, because anything can be considered a microaggression, especially letting a stranger into the house in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and
that's not a microaggression. That's more.
They also all voted for him to be kicked out. And in the movie, everything moved really fast, which I understand that movies often do that because they don't have a lot of time. But like in the beginning, they showed the passage of time with 3 days later. Why not keep doing that? You did it once. Why not keep doing it? That's annoying, and it's inconsistent. And the key to a good movie is consistency. Maybe not. I don't know. It just felt right to say. I don't really know. But I don't know. It just wasn't really consistent, which was silly because it kind of should have been. And Don/Douglas never threatened Gary. I mean, Douglas in the movie threatened Gary with the shotgun. He was holding it very wrong.
Oh, yeah. If you watch this movie, I don't think we can put it up because of copyright, but Douglas is holding the shotgun like this.
And the butt is like right here.
Yeah. And so...
Turn. So the camera... No, turn the other way so the camera... So the butt was like right here. So if he shot... Broke him.
And it would have broken his nose too. Because
everything.
But it was
ridiculous.
really weird that they did that because in the beginning, when Mallory first arrives at the safe house, George is prancing around with this shotgun like it's his, which I guess we can assume it's his.
You mean Douglas?
Douglas, yeah. Is prancing around with this shotgun like it's his, which I guess we can assume it's his.
Yeah.
Because he's usually the one holding it, except for the one time that he left it abandoned and Mallory was like, shh, now you don't have any more ammunition.
Yeah, but
for no reason.
She was holding it right. Like it was on her. It was in the little shoulder thingy.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like why would their coordinator do that? Why would they say, you, pregnant lady with no firearms experience in the book, you can handle it perfectly, like James Bond.
The horses taught her.
The horses at the horse farm taught. That's a good point. Maybe, but still, why in the beginning of the movie can Don/Douglas hold the shotgun?
Well, not
perfectly?
even just that though. He specifically commented. He was like, "I bet you don't even know how to use that." And she was like, "Really? Let me empty it so I can't hurt anybody." But he specifically commented on how she wasn't holding it right when she was. I'm pretty sure she was holding. I don't really remember. I'm pretty sure she was holding it fine. But then he was like holding it all the way out here, like.
Maybe he was
you
already
die.
crazy and he wanted to break his collarbone.
He wasn't. He definitely wasn't because he didn't go crazy in the movie.
That's true.
But yeah, so that was just really silly. There are no rapids on the water, so that was changed because it was just a split.
And there was like a miniature waterfall almost in the movie. capsized after that, and that never happened in the book either. Nobody ended up in the water at all.
Yeah, and there were no drawings in Gary's notebook. It was all crazy writings with like this beautifully perfect handwriting. There was not at all any drawings. And that actually annoyed me because the theory that I'm going with right now about these creatures is that they aren't trying to harm anyone. And again, like we said earlier, because, you know, he went to lift Mallory's mask and she was like, no, this is mine, and pulled it back, and he was like, sorry, and walks away. And he didn't say sorry, but, you know, the creature walks away. And I don't think that he would have done that if he was trying to harm anyone. So I believe that it really is just like two worlds, like, and they just can't really live together. And so the creatures aren't meaning to hurt anyone. And I feel like that's shown on the river with Mallory and the blindfold. And then in this, all of the drawings were like these, or the drawings were all these like scary, like black things.
Woo!
It was annoying because it doesn't let you see it. It doesn't let you believe what you believe like a book allows you to do. Yeah. It was like, this is it, and that's all. Mm-hmm. This is what it is, and you can't say anything else. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
It's silly.
In the briefcase, all these drawings are stacked, so he gets out, and Gary picks up all these papers, and he sets them all out. I don't know if you've ever worked with charcoal, but you can't stack papers like that because you'll end up with a stack of black papers.
Yeah, all just rubbed together.
So, I don't know why they did that. But
yeah, that was weird. And, it was Don who ripped the blankets off the windows and broke the windows. Not Gary, who was ripping off it. Remember?
Yeah.
In
the book, it was Don.
Yeah, because they gave birth in the attic, and Gary appeared in the attic.
Which was a huge reveal in the book, and it wasn't at all.
Oh my god, it was a terrifying reveal.
Yeah, so what happened in the book, as we said earlier, was that they banished Gary from the house, and because in the book Don and Gary were really tight, everybody had their eyes covered to open the door and let Gary outside, but Don smuggled Gary under the group of people and hid him in the cellar for weeks while everybody was still living in the house. And so suddenly you're at the most vulnerable position in your life, giving birth in immense pain on the floor, and the most terrifying person that you've ever met suddenly appears, and nobody is there to protect you. And in the movie they just were like, oh my god, this is great writing. Why?
Yeah, and Tom was never knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't come back. He wasn't the savior of the day. He just died with all the other crazy people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was horrible and kind of dehumanizing, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
People going insane is dehumanizing. That's another big part of the book. You know, because you have these humanizing points, like the radio, or don't remember what else we talked about, but like all the other humanizing points we talked about. So, specifically adding dehumanizing points. That's what Josh Malerman wanted to do. That's what he specifically meant to do that. And they took that out, thus making it worse. Like everything else they've done in this movie.
Yeah. And another little thing that they could have easily just fixed was that Olympia's baby came first. In the book. And they switched it in the movie. Like, I just don't understand why. It doesn't fix or add to the plot.
It doesn't do anything.
In any way. The only thing it does is upset the people that read the book and then watched the movie.
Yep.
There's no reason.
And it was only 4 years, it wasn't 5 years later.
That's another thing. Why? It's just hitting a different key on the keyboard.
Someone accidentally hit the number 5 and they were like, oops, can't change it. And people were like, okay.
Yeah,
that's all
we
right.
understand.
I'd be like, no, freaking change it. We didn't post it anywhere. We didn't make it a real movie yet. And,
oh, man. It's a big one. The Crazy Hunters.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, in the movie, the last hour of the movie, that is to say, the second half of the movie, as we previously mentioned, is
garbage.
Garbage and completely on a separate rail from the book. They split about at the hour mark. And there's some there's sprinkles in it of the book, but for the most part they're not the same story at all. And so at this point in the book, Tom is dead. In the movie, Tom's alive. And there's so many other little things, inconsistencies and things that are changed, but this is just a ridiculous change that they added to make it more like Hollywood, as they always do. And there are crazy people out there that are hunting the people who are blindfolded.
Why would they know they were there?
Yeah, I don't know. They're like actively hunting these people, which I guess there's nothing else to do at the end of the world. But
how did they know they were there? It doesn't. It was terrible.
Yeah, and it was just, it's stupid because it's not from the book at all, and they don't explain it. And this is something that really angers me about movies. It's like, oh, here's a bad guy. Why is he bad? They're evil.
That's their only motivation.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And it was dial phones, not walkie-talkies, as we aforementioned.
It's a dial phone. Yeah. Important enough to be the cover of the book. The only cover of the book is a dial phone. And they don't even mention it in the movie.
Yeah. Oh, and something we thought was really funny. When that guy calls, and he's like, does Tom live there right after Mallory gives birth in the book? And she's like, yes. And he's like, my name is Rick. It was hilarious because, alright, the way that they describe this person made us think of Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. From the book. Because, so he calls, and it's like, making us think of when Lori died. Should I say these things?
Okay, so here's a huge spoiler alert for The Walking Dead.
If you haven't seen it,
we're about to tell you
a few things.
That Lori deeds her house to someone else. Okay, if you're still watching, we hope that you've already watched The Walking Dead or don't care about it.
It was so weird. I just want you to know. Yeah. So after Lori dies giving birth, what am I saying? Oh, Rick kind of goes crazy, as you know, as we all know, and there's like that whole phone, like the few episodes of the phone calls, and it was hilarious because the way that Mallory and Rick were talking to each other, it reminded us of that phone call, and so we were joking the whole time. Oh, it's Rick Grimes. And then at the end of the book, when she meets Rick, the blind guy, in the end of this movie, or book, I mean, it was hilarious because they describe him with like what was it, like a gruff
voice and
like a deep, gruffy voice, and it was hilarious because I feel like this timeline works out perfectly.
It does. We looked up the years. That season, The Walking Dead had already come out by the time that the book was written, and they're both post-apocalyptic.
It was so great.
So
I like to think that it's still Rick.
Yeah, I think we think that Malerman's a big fan of The Walking Dead.
I think totally, absolutely.
It was also interesting because Rick in the book and movie called back because Tom was reaching out to people saying, "We have sanctuary, we have a safe place for you to come," and he's leaving voicemails. And what happened in The Walking Dead? The phone rang. Rick picked it up, heard somebody say, "We have a safe zone. Place. Come, you can come and be safe with us."
Yeah, it just works so nicely.
The only difference in the phone call is that Tom gives them an address.
Yeah.
And Rick Grimes doesn't hear an address on their phone. But other than that, they could be in the same world, maybe.
But also, Tom in the movie is like ripped.
Why?
How? They talked about how they were emaciated. Like, Mallory, we kind of looked this up, and it didn't make sense, but Mallory's talking about how she can see her ribs through her big belly, like, before she gave birth. That doesn't make any sense to me. But they were emaciated. They didn't have a lot of food. Or maybe emaciated is too strong of a word, but they were like starving.
Hungry,
yeah, they were hungry and basically starving.
And also the food would have been taken from the adults to the kids hopefully, so the kids could grow up big and strong and never be hungry. And that would mean that Tom is also hungry, but instead he remains a bodybuilder with the same physique throughout the entire movie, throughout 5-6 years of living, which just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something he always likes to talk about is why aren't they farming yet?
Yeah, I don't understand why 5 years into the apocalypse you're not figuring out how to farm. I understand you're blind, but there are still. What are you doing with your day? Are you just sitting there? Man, I sure hope we get 1 can of beans from the next supply run we're gonna do in a week. But in the meantime, let's sit here and starve. No, you're gonna be farming. You need to farm.
You're right.
Because eventually, the canned food's gonna run out. That's inevitable. Even if you loot every single grocery store in the world, your kid's kid is going to need to farm. So why not start now and eat those fresh fruits and veggies that you deserve?
You deserve it.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Yeah. And Rick also, the reason he called Mallory, and it was right after she gave birth, but the reason was because of Tom's voicemail, as we mentioned before as well. And, they kind of glossed past that. And he called right after she gave birth. Right after.
Mm-hmm.
Literally right after she gave birth.
That's like the climax, the beginning of the falling action.
Yeah, and she's this broken, now not pregnant woman carrying 2 babies like, oh my god, answering this phone while being blind and walking over the dead bodies of her friends and family. Well, what she, feels as her family. And, this is a small thing, but...
But it's important because there's like a page and a half about it. They have 3 buckets in the book, and 2 of them are metal, and 1 of them is wooden. And the well that we mentioned before fits perfectly with the wooden one, which we said before in the movie they just scoop. Which that's not how.
That's not how wells work.
Yeah.
What?
But instead they had to use a lowering mechanism.
A crank.
Which the wooden bucket is the one that came with the well, so that's...
Yeah, it fits nice.
Who was it? Was it Jules that went out?
Felix
went out, and that was his favorite bucket to use, and
You always get them confused. They're real people, man.
Yeah, it's easy to confuse these, because Malerman completely skips over any descriptions
That's
other
true.
than saying that Mallory has long dark hair. That's the only description we get for any character.
Jules and Felix are also very similar, so I understand how you keep getting confused.
I mean, they're both secondary characters with no character development.
Who are male and who are sweet.
And the only difference is that one of them has a dog, and I think it was Jules.
Good job.
Yeah. But in the movie, both buckets were plastic, and plastic is evil. Yeah, but it was a completely pointless change again. I guess maybe they had their PA go to the store, and they're like, get 3 buckets. And they're like, okay, and they just got the cheapest ones.
Yeah, well, that's not how you produce a movie, so...
Yeah. And they glossed over the bathroom situations in the movie, which was a big deal in the book, because you can't leave the house. Somebody's got to dump it.
Yeah. Well, even just the bucket was a big deal.
Yeah.
All of it was a big deal. All of it. Literally everything. But, oh yeah. And in the movie, they, would go into houses and, lift their blindfold a bit to see if any windows were open, and then they would close them. That, literally defeats the purpose of the blindfold.
Yeah.
They would walk into houses, literally check everything, and then decide if they felt comfortable enough to take off the blindfolds.
Yeah, there was a part in the book where after the big climax and the slaughter, Mallory checks the house for 6 hours with a broom until she felt safe enough to lift her blindfold, and they're outside and they're like... You know?
Yeah, it was just silly. And the boat never capsized, ever. That was stupid. They never walked on land to get there. The creatures never spoke.
Yeah, in the book, they were in a boat, and what was her name? Candace? At the end?
Oh, Constance.
Constance gets the boat, and they hear loud recordings, and then they get off the boat, and then
Well, they heard the recording before that.
yeah, and then Constance brings them inside to the school for the blind, and in the movie, they got off and they started sprinting, and Sandra Bullock falls down a cliff, and we get to hear her heavily breathing again for a while, just like in Gravity, which I still hear in my sleep sometimes. When I have fever dreams, that's what I hear, and it's terrible. It's terrible to hear. It's awful.
Sorry, Sandra Bullock.
Sorry. Wait, you're a good actress, but didn't like Gravity, didn't like this movie, and those are the only two movies I've seen you in, so... Yeah. Also, the creatures were whispering a lot, and it really reminded us of Lost.
You were like, "Is this Lost?" It's like what was it called? Oh my god, how have I forgotten? Yeah, the smoke monster. It even looked like the smoke monster. It was coming at them from 4 different angles. I think it was like here and like here, and coming at them. And you could see it in the trees, and I was like, "We're not in Lost, okay?
Yeah.
Take it down a notch."
Yeah, and then
ridiculous.
They arrive at the overgrown door to the school for the blind, and then they get in there, which isn't what happened in the book, but...
And they check their eyes, like, let me see your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Back off.
Yeah, in the book, there's actually a moment where Mallory gets inside, and they tell them that it's okay to take off the blindfolds, and Mallory prevents the kids from taking off their blindfolds and takes off her own, and then she sees people with slits cut across their eyes who have like gotten broken glass and blinded themselves, and
forks and
she thinks it's a trap for a minute that they were going to like take them, and then the lady Constance explains that that's what they used to do to survive.
Well, Rick explains.
Yeah, Rick says that, but now they don't do that anymore, and that was another issue that I had with the finale of the movie when they go to, well, it wasn't really a finale, it was kind of like made me annoyed. And then it was...
The stupid ending.
The nightmare was finally over. In the school for the blind, they had a courtyard. Why would you have that? They tried
Yes, that's right. Rick specifically said in the call, he said, we don't have any windows. Mm-hmm. That was specific.
And in the book, also, Mallory specifically comments on the lights that they have in there made her feel like she was outside.
Yeah, it wasn't sunlight coming through.
Yeah.
Like, what happens if one of those plants dies?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone dies.
Yeah. So, and we already know that the things can fly because they somehow took down a pilot. And also trees when they were trying to get to Mallory at the end. Yeah. But all in all, if it was a standalone movie, it's still pretty bad. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely biased as of right now. But I feel like even if I saw it as a standalone, I would be skeptical of a lot of things.
The book is actually my favorite book. It's been my favorite book for like 4 years now. It's great. I think Josh Malerman did a fantastic job of taking media, because in horror movies, what you see is what scares you most of the time. They're jump scares and sounds and the soundtrack and ambience. It all builds and it makes you feel terror. But Malerman said, I'm going to write a scary book, and I can't have any of that because the media won't allow it. Not the media, like the press, the medium is a better word, won't allow that. So what can I do? Instead, Malerman takes the absence of all those things and makes it scary. So
yeah, he did a good job. I mean, I have some qualms about his writing. Maybe we can talk about that at some other time.
Yeah, but great book. It was a movie.
Terrible. Terrible movie.
Yeah.
Hated it.
So.
Hated it a lot. But that's all we have for, things that the movie changed. And, we already talked about all the things that the movie missed, left out, forgot about, didn't care about. All of the above.
So, thank you for watching, and these videos are made possible from viewers like you. You can support us on Patreon and support us by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you for watching. what's up? Back at it again with another